Okay, so now for those of you guys who watch my channel, I know there are tens of you. You know that I pretty much just post random stuff. Sometimes I'll do a meme or I'll do a skit or maybe I'll just put up a song that I wrote. I don't really have a general direction that I've been putting this channel in. And thinking recently, I realized that I really do need to have a general direction for this channel. And so I've been thinking, what do I want to do for my channel? And thinking about that, I looked back to the time when I actually thought about making this channel, and I actually myself wanted to do music reviews, reviewing albums from various bands that have been releasing albums recently, and listening to the album and giving my take on it. And thinking about doing that, I just sort of changed my mind on that and just decided to do random stuff when starting this channel. And obviously, for those of you guys who watch it, you know that I only have like 35 subscribers, so it really hasn't been working out too well. And so I'm just deciding that I'm just going to start doing music reviews because that's something that I think would be really fun and I might find enjoyable. And it's something that people like to see too. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So yeah, cool, right? So let's get into this review. I'm going to be doing the new Yes album by classic progressive rock band Yes that just released this brand new LP, an hour worth of original material, and it's really high quality stuff. So this is a historic album in Yes's discography because it's the first where there are no original members left in the band. They've all quit or been dead or something like that, and they're all gone. The most recent one is actually Chris Squire, who unfortunately died of, I believe it was cancer, back in 2015. But before his death, he actually said that he wanted the band to continue on, continually changing members, lineup change after lineup change, and just going on for, I don't know, forever, I guess. I guess he wants the band to go on for centuries, and so something like that. So that's what they decided to do. And so now this new band with no original members is getting together and they're making this new album, which is called The Quest. And it's actually really, honestly, it surprised me by how good it is, there being no original members. But of course, honestly, you do have to realize that just because there aren't any original members, there are still members who were there for a lot of the classic Yes albums, like Steve Howe, who I believe was there since the Yes album in 1971, and he's been on and off in the band since then, but he was there for a lot of the classic Yes albums, like Fragile and Close to the Edge and stuff like that. And then we've got Alan White as well, who's been there for a lot of great Yes albums, like I think he was there for Tales from Topographic Oceans and Relayer, both awesome albums. Give them a listen, they're high quality stuff. And anyways, that's how it is. We've still got some classic members in the band, but we don't have any original members. We don't have any members that were there right when the band started with their classic 1969 self-titled. But yeah. Anyways, on to this album. This album is instrumentally, it has a really great vibe. Steve Howe's guitar playing is, of course, beautiful as always. He's clearly proven himself as a genius on the guitar. And obviously, we've got Billy Sherwood, actually, who's a new bass player. He rejoined after leaving the band after their 1999 LP, The Ladder, and he was replaced by Chris Squire, who wanted to come back in. And then obviously he died in 2015. So we've got Billy Sherwood coming back, and his bass playing, though it's not quite as good as Chris Squire. Obviously, Chris Squire is an insane bass player. His bass playing is really solid on this album. It sounds a lot like Chris Squire's playing, but not quite as good, but still spot on. And it certainly doesn't do shame to the name of Chris Squire, certainly, or the shame to the name of Yes. And then obviously we've got Alan White has always been a great drummer. He's one of the greatest, I would say, one of the greatest progressive rock drummers of all time. And we've got John Davidson on vocals, who is an outstanding vocalist. Sometimes it sounds like he's trying a little bit too hard to sound like Anderson and John Anderson, the original vocalist of the band. And it sounds like he's trying too hard to sound like him, but he's still sort of on this album. He's finding his own as a vocalist, and he's starting to sound less like John Anderson and more like himself, and he's getting his own vocal style. He's sounding a lot less copycat like he did on Heaven and Earth or their last album, the one before that. I don't remember what it's called. He's sounding a lot more like himself, and I think he's gaining a lot more confidence as a vocalist, honestly. And overall, the entire album is not trying as hard to sound like classic Yes as I had expected. I was expecting it to just be sort of a rough imitation of classic Yes that wasn't really going to sound good, but it's actually starting to become fresh and new and gain its own new sound, if you know what I mean. It's not just doing the same things that they've done before. They're starting to actually do new stuff, and they're evolving as a band. One good example of this that I would give is the use of orchestration in this album. They have used orchestration on previous albums, using an orchestra and brass and horns and stuff like that. They used that, actually, the last time they used it was the year I was born, I think, in 2004 on their album Magnification, which, pretty good album. But before that, they hadn't used it since 1970 with their album, their second album. And they just didn't really use orchestration very much in their albums. And so to hear that on a Yes album, it's certainly a unique experience. And it's something that you don't hear very much in Yes albums. As well, the type of orchestration, the sound of the orchestra that they're using on this album, and the arrangements sound different than what you've heard on the other two Yes albums that use that. It's much more beautiful and lush, and it has it just has a completely different sound from a lot of the previous Yes releases that use orchestration in them. So I find that quite interesting. I guess for me, highlight tracks would probably be Dare to Know, which was actually released as a single off of the album, I think a month ago, but I didn't hear it until actually sitting down to listen to this album when it dropped. But it's a great track. The orchestration on the track is honestly the best on the album. If you're looking for a good Yes song with orchestra and you don't have time to listen to the whole album, which I obviously suggest that you listen to the whole thing because it's awesome. But if you don't have time to listen to the whole album, definitely listen to Dare to Know. The use of, especially the horns on that album, on that song, just truly shine, and it's truly an amazing experience listening to that song. And a Living Island is honestly a really great ballad. It just sounds beautiful and truly well written. And then I actually, in fact, like Mystery Tour, which is technically a bonus track, I guess. I don't know, but it was on the album on Spotify. There wasn't any split between them, and so if you're listening to the whole album all the way through, you're probably going to hear Mystery Tour, and it's really awesome. I mean, it's actually pays homage to the Beatles, which, why not? The Beatles are awesome, and Yes has always been heavily inspired by the Beatles. I think they covered a Beatles song on their first album, so they've always loved the Beatles, and the Beatles have always been a big influence on Yes, and so it's really cool to hear them sort of talk about the Beatles and say about how much they like them, which is cool because why not? The Beatles are awesome. I think my main problem with this album is that I find the keyboards very lacking on it. I don't know. Rick Wakeman isn't in the band anymore. For those of you who don't know, he's probably one of the greatest prog rock, even rock keyboardists of all time, and his keyboard playing is always spot on, but he hasn't been in the band since like the 90s, I think. So I don't know. The keyboardist who they have now is fairly mediocre. I don't really like his playing. It doesn't sound that good, and it's not even really there that much, the keyboard playing. There's not any keyboard solos, which Rick Wakeman himself used a lot, and has some really great keyboard solos on other Yes albums, but there aren't any of those here, and there aren't any like nice synth lines or synth riffs or anything throughout this. There was one on the first track, the Ice Bridge, but other than that, there aren't really very many synth lines. And so, personally, I would think that it would be a good move for Yes to get Wakeman back in the band, but I know Wakeman's busy with a lot of solo stuff, so we might not want to do that. But overall, I think this album is very inspired, not uninspired at all. I find it quite a great album. I would say it's a great album, at least a very good album. I think overall, for a star rating, I'm going to give this one 4.2 stars, which is, 4.2 out of 5. So I think this is a fairly good album, fairly great record, and I would recommend it to anybody who's watching. It's spot on. It's probably the best thing that Yes has done in decades, probably since maybe the latter in '99. Was probably would be the most recent album that I would say is up to par with this one. This is a high quality project, great listen. I enjoyed this, and I'm going to be listening to it a lot more in the future. It's a great record, and I would totally recommend it. High quality album. So yeah, that's pretty much the conclusion. I'm going to give this thing 4.2 stars. It's pretty much a masterpiece. So yeah, from now on, I'm going to be reviewing albums like this. And if you have an album that you want me to review, put it down in the comments. Any new albums that have been released in the past, month or so, couple weeks, I'll listen to them and I'll maybe drop a review on them. So yeah, if you liked this, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to know whenever I put a new review out. And thanks for watching.